it's very difficult to turn I them relationship where you feel like you're facing a group identity and threatened by that group identity into a I thou relationship. I can clearly remember when I had a disdain for Descartes before even reading Descartes. And this was something that was relatively apolitical. It was something where it's fascinating how you have an intimate sense of fear of reading an author, and you have a disdain for an author even if you haven't really studied the author. Descartes is a particularly interesting victim here because, I mean, after reading him, I was changed, of course. My perspective was very, very, very different. But particularly if you just read the language and the tone that he uses, he's like one of the most amicable philosophers I've ever read. Like, he seems to be one of the most humble people, or at least philosophers that I've ever read. And yet, before reading him, I experienced him as an enemy. And switching from that sense of, oh, he's an enemy, he's a them, he's a danger, to actually understanding what he means, to actually embracing his perspective, and at least being able to recapitulate from his perspective how he looks at things and thinks about issues was very difficult. I can clearly remember the first times I took up the text, my heart was pounding. It was really an experience of fear. It was an experience of, oh my God, something dangerous could happen to me. And that's something really, really interesting because, I mean, what could happen to you? I mean, you're just reading a text here, right? What's the possible consequence of that? I mean, it can't kill you. And if you find something to be weird, don't believe it. And yet I felt physically threatened by Descartes. And I felt like I was doing something evil. I felt like I was breaking against my moral code by actually engaging with reading Descartes. That was really, really weird. It made no sense at all. But it was almost like as if I was going to war against somebody and I could be killed, and as if the other side was dangerous. And you had to really, be careful what's happening to you. This was the experience of it. And it's weird because, again, Descartes is not a highly politicized thinker, and yet I had such strong emotions against him. I can't clearly remember what kind of literature I had consumed. It was kind of New Agey stuff before reading Descartes, but I just strongly had a very, very strong aversion against him, and I blamed him for the downfall of the Western civilization and blah, blah, blah. And I think something very similar is happening when you are interested to understand the other side and not see them as a representative of a group identity that is dangerous to you and crazy and incapable of thinking, irrational, so in other words, non-human, since thinking is one of the most distinctly human abilities. If you are interested in actually bonding with the other side and understanding the other side, I think the inherent experience behind this will be fear, and it will be the sense that you're breaking your moral code, that you're doing something evil. I think this is not the exception, but I think this is something that you would have to basically assume that this is the experience that you're gonna have. You'll have the experience that you are doing something evil here. And that makes sense. Within a tribal warfare situation where you have chosen group identities, it only makes sense that shifting your position potentially and embracing the identity of the other, deconstructing your own position, stopping hardening it but softening it up, opening it up, is something that's dangerous. And it's dangerous from multiple vantage points. You can become a traitor, and you can be expelled from your own group identity. That's something that's dangerous to you. You can be killed by the other group identity. That's something that's also not fun, all right? I mean, no matter in which side you turn it, there's danger in every direction. And I think that the reality of tribal warfare, is something that is with us even when we're making trivial and mundane decisions, is reading somebody and just listening to somebody who is supposedly representing the other side and the other tribe. It feels amoral. And this is one of the most difficult things for us to do something which goes against our sense of morality and our sense of self-identity of what we are supposed to do as an individual who has a group identity as well. And it's something that in most cases just won't happen. Most people will not be doing something that goes against their moral sense, and it's something that I'm hearing all the time. For example, from progressive friends, I hear, I can't listen to Charlie Kirk because I would be giving in to evil. I can't engage with these arguments. I can't stand any of this anymore because this would be embracing evil into my world. And it goes the other way. It cuts the other way as well, by the way, of course. I don't think I could ever make a conservative read Foucault or Derrida. Unless, of course, strategically, and they have strategic interest in understanding them so that they can fight them. That's different. Then you have a distance, then you always feel secure when you're reading an author, but your intention from the start is to deconstruct them because you know they're the enemy. Of course, you don't fear existentially threatened. And this is something I'm observing a lot. There are many actual culture war warriors who professionally study the other side, not because they're interested in the other side, but because from the start they have decided the other side is wrong, and they really want to understand how the other side is working, functioning, thinking, so that they can use their own thoughts, their own ideas against them. This doesn't involve any kind of vulnerability here. Here you have people who at the age of 14 already had figured out which side of things they are on, and they spent their entire lives. This is something very common on the Balkans, by the way. You have many people who actually even been paid to study the other side professionally and find good arguments against them. Very much like Thomas Aquinas, he was really obsessed with proving the skeptics wrong. He could really spend days thinking about how he can prove the other side to be wrong. He was really obsessed with studying, if you want, the enemy from within and deconstructing the enemy. This is not a position of vulnerability, and this is not a position of really being interested in the other side. This is still a war game that you're playing here.